travelers need to keep local laws in mind when you head abroad. The U.S. urges tourists to carefully check for updates relating to laws and regulations for any country that you're going to. Countries like Russia, for example, ban cannabis. We've heard the story of Brittany Griner. In Japan, marijuana, many over-the-counter and prescription drugs, and some containing acetaminophen are not allowed. The UK bans pocket knives, blades, mace, or pepper spray canisters, or any part of a gun. And it can be easy to forget if you have one of those in your luggage locally. Maybe you took a road trip. Here now, NewsNation travel editor Peter Greenberg. Peter, thank you. This is a lesson in know before you go, a serious one.
It is. And in fact, you just mentioned 3 countries. It's bigger than that. All the Commonwealth countries, that's Australia, Canada, Turks and Caicos being one as well, have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to guns and ammunition. And you also mentioned drugs. We have the same problem in this country, crossing state lines from one state that may basically legalize marijuana to another state that doesn't. You need to be aware of that, especially if you're flying, because you're now going into a federal area every time you go to an airport, and those rules apply as well. Keep in mind that these sentences, we're talking maybe a 10-year jail sentence in the Turks and Caicos. In the past, and I mean in the recent past, they've been handed out and then have been suspended, but there's no guarantee of that. And you need to know that. One of the problems about ammunition and guns goes right back to this country. The TSA last year, in 2023, more than 6,000 weapons confiscated at security checkpoints. And get this, 93% of them were loaded. And in that situation, the TSA has some penalties as well. You can be fined up to nearly $15,000. However, depending on the severity of the situation, you could also be arrested.
So a fine is one thing, right? And it's costly. 15 grand would be expensive, but 12 years in prison for having 4 bullets in your bag. How severe are the consequences in Turks and Caicos compared to some of these other places I mentioned if you get caught with acetaminophen in Japan?
Well, let me talk about those prescription drugs as well. If you're traveling with any prescription medicine, you need to do 2 things. One, get a letter from your doctor that gives you the reason why you're taking that, and make sure that your doctor not only lists the brand name of the drug, but its generic name that may not always be recognized overseas. You need to do that because a misunderstanding there can also land you in prison.
So how severe is a 12-year potential penalty? Do most countries, if you break the rules and you're caught with something that's not allowed, is the penalty as stiff?
If it's weapons, you bet. Japan, Australia, Turks and Caicos are just a few of the countries that have those severe penalties, and they usually don't necessarily negotiate them in extraordinary circumstances where you can make, the defense, of course, being I didn't realize that it was a mistake. They may suspend the sentence, but again, there is no guarantee that's going to happen. In the case of the Turks and Caicos, my guess is going to be they're going to impose a sentence and then they may suspend it. But again, no guarantee.
Yeah, you just don't have a lot of leverage, right? The rules are the rules. I'm curious, Peter, the State Department's role. Can they and do they step in any cases?
How many Americans are in prison overseas right now? It might surprise you to know it's a lot. And the State Department has limited ability here. They can basically be a communication tool for you to be able to get you in touch with legal counsel, maybe get you some money from friends and relatives. But remember, once you leave the United States, your constitutional rights expire when you get to that destination, and you don't necessarily have those protections.
So the message here is do your homework before you travel anywhere, even if it's across state lines. But if you're traveling abroad, where are the best places to look to know and understand the rules and be prepared? Where do you go when you travel to know?
I look at my luggage first to make sure that there's nothing in there. Honestly, I mean, this is basic common sense. You don't need to know the laws to be able to embrace common sense. And common sense dictates you don't bring guns, you don't bring ammunition, and you don't bring dangerous or illegal drugs, whether they're agreed upon in your state or not, anywhere else. You have to know the rules, and the way you do that is don't take them to begin with.
Right, and read the rules very carefully. I mean, something as simple as cough syrup, which you would think there would be no issue with here, would be if you're traveling to certain places. Really interesting case, and as I said, know before you go. It can have some serious consequences. Peter, nice to see you. Thanks as always.